Hi, I'm Mark Edward Lewis, and welcome to Cinema Sound Studio B. Today we're going to be talking about word clock. Has nothing to do with ebonics, but what is it? Do you need it? And if so, when do you use it? Well, you really only need word clock if you're running multiple audio devices processing the same audio. What does that mean? Well, say you had audio coming out of your computer to an audio interface, and that audio interface fed another audio interface or another processing device digitally, not with analog cables, but digital cables, T-diff, light pipe, one of these other ones, ASEBU, something like this, T-diff, SPDIF, any of those devices, and you need to have word clock between those two devices. Well, why is that? Well, digital devices are really finicky about when they want to see audio data. Sort of like, imagine an old-time projector, that the frame of the film is being sprocketed down, and at the right position, that light shines through it and makes that beautiful image. But the rest of the time, you don't see what's happening. Why? Because there's a shutter there, and that shutter's turning around with a little hole on it, and it only gets to the right place when the film is in the right place, and then the hole opens up, allows the light to shine through, and everybody sees a perfect picture. And as soon as the sprockets of the film begin moving it down again, it goes black. That's why we like to say that you're mainly in the dark when you're watching features and films in a theater when it's being old-time projected. Well, digital audio is the same way. It only wants to see audio at a specific time. And when you have digital devices, multiples of them, they all want to be in sync. Otherwise, you get all kinds of artifacts and sometimes even blown speakers. Word clock allows special code in the word clock spec to be sent from one device to another, slaving the digital sync of the slave device to the master device so that everybody's in sync. And you're like, well, can't we just use digital SMPTE or timecode for that? Well, not really. First of all, word clock has no real-time indicator. It's only saying now, 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 not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames. It's just saying now, 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 48,000 times a second, or 96, or 192. SMPTE says, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, 30 or 24 times a second. And although you can be running SMPTE to sync two devices, it's nowhere near the kind of resolution that's required in order to keep digital devices in sync when connected digitally. It's just never going to work. Now, you can run word clock and SMPTE clock at the same time, but the SMPTE needs to come to the master device, and then that needs to be the device telling your computer or camera or whatever where you are in time. And then the slave devices only get that word clock saying, hey, here's where the word clock is, because that word clock is always solid, while SMPTE, as you know, kind of moves in and out. I mean, just consider the resolution between 24 times a second and 48,000 times a second. You can tell immediately which one's going to be more accurate and which one you want to keep solid. So should you use word clock? Well, like I said, if you've got two digital devices, you need to run it. Even if you've got, well, I've got ADAT sync. Well, I'd still recommend running word clock to that device. If you have a device where you're like, well, it was cheap and I'm going to a place where I'm running it into a really nice device or an expensive device, in which case, yeah, you'd want to run the word clock from the nice device to the cheap device, even if the cheap device is running audio to the expensive device. Why is that? Well, because more expensive devices or devices that can run 192 kilohertz or better typically have better hardware and more stable clocks. The more stable your clock, the better sounding your audio. So whichever device you think has the most stable clock, especially if it's a Mark of the Unicorn device or an Apogee device, that should be your word clock master. Regardless of where the audio is going, that doesn't really matter. It's just your word clock master. Like in the old days when we had black burst, that you have a black burst box as super accurate. Well, super accurate at 30 frames a second is nothing compared to super accurate at 48,000 frames a second, which is what we do with word clock. Now, for those of you who have special, all kinds of, 256 word clock and double word clock and all that other stuff, those are proprietary and useful if you have boxes that will receive it. Typically, they're even more accurate, but they're not required. At 48K, if you've got a 48K word clock that has a solid, from a solid box that has a good clock in it, you're in really great shape, and you shouldn't hear any weird distortion or anything like that. If you've got any more questions about that, you can ask us on the forum at Cinema Sound or on this blog. Until then, we'll see you in post.
Even if you're stuck.